Hey y'all, let's talk about painting fabric. It's much easier than you ever want to think. So basically, you need a piece to paint, and this one is kind of like that velvety material. This is a really old, probably a 1940s chair. The key to painting fabric is some water. So if you get your fabric misted and wet, first of all, what it does is it helps so when you put the paint on, it doesn't like soak it up so much. And the next thing is to take a really highly pigmented paint. So in this instance, I am using DIY paint, Debbie's Design Diary paint. It's a clay-based paint. The clay-based paints seem to be a lot more pigmented, but I have used Dixie Belle and I have used mud paint, so not just one brand of paint. So just use a good quality chalk or clay-based paint. I do about 3 or 4 to 1 water to paint. So the bigger number would be the water. So at least 3 times the amount of water to 1 part paint. So say 3 to 1. I don't really have a specific measurement that I use all the time. I do it so that the paintbrush just runs like it's a dripping, dripping, dripping thing. Because basically the paint is kind of acting like a dye as opposed to a paint. So you basically brush it on after you have misted your fabric. You let it dry. You sand it with a sanding block and you repeat because it will soak in. It will not make your furniture stinky. It won't mold your furniture. It won't make it, it will not be super rough. As you can see, I'm using a sanding block right here. And basically, it's one of those sanding sponges. They're really soft. And what I'm doing is just making sure that the paint is really into all the nap of the fabric. So fabric, if you paint it one direction, it could lay down. And then when you sit on it, it would totally not be all into the nap of the fabric. So just make sure that you use that sanding block while the paint's wet and just get it in there. The key to successfully painting fabric is sanding it, right? Isn't that insane? So what I'm doing here is using that little sanding sponge and just making sure that I'm getting that paint into all the fibers of the fabric. And then spraying it with water to go to the next. You see how runny that is? Either 4 to 1 or 3 to 1 is the water to paint ratio. Of course, the higher number being the water. So a lot more water than paint. And spraying and spritzing your fabric first. So it started out as a green chair. I've already done the back. Now, when I did the back, you need to really move those pleats and get in between all of those pleats, because what happens is you just paint the top, and then as soon as you sit on it, you can see all in between it. I have done this so many times, and it's so easy. And no, it does not come off onto your clothing when it is dry, of course, and cured. No, it is not crunchy or hard if you do it right. So 4 to 1, 3 to 1, water to paint. Then sanding in between while the paint's still wet. And then when the paint dries, using that sanding sponge and breaking up the nap of the furniture so that way it still stays soft and supple. You can use like a top coat if you want, or like a spray wax. Dixie Belle has a good spray wax. But to be honest, in the ones I've done, I don't really seal it with anything. After about 30 days, the paint's totally cured and dried and done, and it doesn't come off on your clothing. So why go to the extra effort if you don't have to, right? I mean, seriously. It's going to take some elbow grease for sure, because the sanding sponge, you can go wash it. So when I was done with this, I did just rinse out the sanding sponge and then save it. It's just a sanding sponge. Got them at Home Depot, a 3M sanding sponge. It's probably a medium grit. I'm not trying to sand like I would a piece of wooden furniture, right? I am just trying to move the nap of the furniture. And then when the paint dries and it is crunchy, you take the sanding block over the top again. And what it does is it breaks all that crunchiness away and allows the furniture to become soft again. Now, it's not going to be like, honestly, as soft as it was originally, but for, an 16-ounce jar of paint, that's what, under $30, as opposed to having this chair recovered for probably $400. I mean, I'd say I'd paint it. And how often do you sit on these kind of chairs, right? These are kind of like those chairs you sit in the corner and they're pretty and you don't really use them. This chair was in great shape. So just be very careful if you are actually painting fabric to not rub too hard, because you don't want to put a hole with this sanding sponge because it is sandpaper, right? So you want a medium to a medium fine grit of sandpaper. You don't want, or sanding sponge, you don't want like a super gritty one. And I just keep working it in. Just working it in, making sure that the paint's everywhere. Now, the wood portions, I had originally started painting it black on the bottom. I usually will paint that after I'm all done. That way I don't have to be super neat. You can just go ahead and take your chalk paint and paint the wood if you want, or leave the wood. You could have taped it off or just leave it natural. Whatever you want to do. Just make sure when you've got these plates that you get down in between them and get down in there, so that way the paintbrush gets really in it, right? Do you see how quickly it works? And I'm not kidding when I say it's not crunchy as long as you sand it. So it's basically the same thing that you do with a wooden piece of furniture, except you're using more water. I grabbed one of my skinny long paddle brushes to just get down in those long pleats so that it would go down so it would fit. So different brushes might help you get into those smaller and harder to reach areas. But yeah, this is one of those velvet chairs, they're cheap. Find them at the thrift store, find them here and find them there. This one, the fabric is in great shape, but it had like it almost looked like bleach spots on it. And who knows, it might have been from sitting in the sun or sitting anywhere. But I mean, it wasn't pretty. And I was doing this for a gal who had a boutique, and she wanted it in one of her dressing rooms. And I was like, this is perfect, right? So this is, the color I'm using is called Kissing Booth. It is a pinkish, red pink color from DIY paint. Like I said, I really like using DIY paint on the furniture fabric because it's so pigmented. You see my hands, they're like dyed red because it acts like a dye instead of a paint. So just use your sanding block, and really I probably didn't need to use it as much as I have been on here. I was like, wow, I did it a lot. But get down there in them corners, make sure you push down. And you're not trying to soak it with when you spray it with water. You're just trying to mist the fabric. So that way it's not just resisting. It's kind of helping it, the paint to just soak in really nicely. And it'll dry, and just add your sanding block, and really that's it. So have you ever done it? Have you tried to paint fabric? Are you afraid to try it? Let me know in the comments what you think. It's so fun and actually easy. It does take time because this is just the first coat. This will really soak in, and it'll fade a lot. And then wherever I missed it, you'll see little parts of green. So then you got to go in and do it a second coat. But I got to say, I do 2 coats on every piece of wooden furniture that I do. So it's really not any different. So the hardest part is the one with the pleats. And it's easier to paint this type of velvet fabric as opposed to, I painted once kind of one that was almost like a tweedy fabric. It was a little bit harder. And I gotta say, the reason it was harder is because the sanding sponge kind of pilled up that tweedy fabric. So, be aware of that. You can also do this to your outdoor patio cushions. it is the exact same process. So right now when I am doing the voiceover on this video, it's actually summertime. So if you want to paint your outdoor patio cushions and get them through one more season, it's the same thing. Spritz them, paint them, sand them, then do the same thing. Second coat, spritz them, sand them, paint them, sand them. I have patio cushions that I have had out there for 5 years. They are finally just starting to get yucky. And I will say that they're tearing, but they're not faded. The first year that I had them, they were so faded that they were awful. And I was going to buy new ones until I priced them. So just think about that. This chair is gorgeous. Look at it. I mean, seriously, how cute is this chair? Like, who wouldn't want to put this in their house? It went from a dull green to a gorgeous, beautiful red, pink. It's called Kissing Booth. So beautiful red, pink lipstick color. That's going to look great in my client's boutique. She's got a clothing boutique. So I wanted to say thanks for watching. So basically what's going to happen now is I'm just going to let it dry. I'm going to let it dry overnight. I'm going to come back the next day and I'm going to do a second coat. The same exact process. And then I'm going to paint the wood. And this chair is done. Like ready to be sat on. I'm going to paint it the second time. I'm going to sand it till it gets just, be careful sanding. That's all I got to really warn you about is be careful so that you don't sand holes through your fabric. Because if you have pieces that are threadbare, it makes it a little bit harder because you can't really sand as much. But it changes the look. It gives you another, years of use, right? As opposed to having to reupholster this and go, what the heck? That's so expensive. Because I did get a quote, and I think it was $450. $450. I mean, wow. And the thing is, the padding on this chair was fabulous. It's just faded. It was made very well, so it was just really faded. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe. Comment if you have questions. And don't forget, I sell all of the paints that are used here on my website, which is tonatransformations.com. It's Tona transformations.com. So thanks for watching. Let me know if you have questions. And like I say, when it starts to dry, you can just take that sanding sponge and just rub it over. I will do the back too, the upper part of the back. It's just easier to do that one area. It is a little bit harder with the pleats. So when it dries, okay, we're going to do the back, right? What a difference, right? Before and after. Such a pretty chair. I need to find another one of these and do it again. It's just so fun and easy. I have heard people put fabric softener in their water. I've never done it. Maybe the next one I do, I will do. I'm not sure if it interferes with the paint. But I'm going to do a little more research on that, and I will let you guys know. But I've heard that it helps with the crunchiness, and you don't have to sand so much. But I wouldn't want it to interfere with the adherence of the paint. So anyhow, you guys, thanks so much for watching. As I always say at the end of all my videos, go out and be fabulous. Let me know if you have questions, and then go to my website to order all your paint and supplies. And I do have the sanding blocks, I have the paint, and I have the spray wax. That's all available. Okay, you guys, thanks for watching.